I wanted to talk to you a little about the journey that we went through at ABB when it came to enterprise output management. Not only do we operate in the high-tech industry, we also have a great deal of emphasis on sustainability and reducing the impact that we have on the world around us. So this is from reducing the amount of water we're consuming, the power we're consuming, and improving relationships in the communities that we operate. So, and also very active in the fourth industrial revolution, which is bringing together people, technology, and data. And we've also recently been nominated by Fortune magazine as one of the top 10 countries in the world that are changing the world. And this is for the work that we are doing with electric chargers for electric vehicles that we are currently deploying. So that is essentially who we are. I work in IT, so I don't always get to play with the cool toys and the little robots and things like that. We've got to do the hard work in the background to make sure everything is working. So if we talk about printing, if we look back to where we were at the start of this journey, I think this is a picture that may be familiar to a lot of you who work in a large global organization. When we started looking at the number of devices we had out there, the brands that we had in our environment, I think we had practically every single brand of printer manufacturer you can imagine. Each country had gone off and established its own local supply agreements with hardware vendors. They had their own service agreements. They have their own solutions implemented locally. I lost track of the number of different software solutions we had in place, but I think we probably, if you could name one, we probably have it somewhere in the organization. And this posed a real challenge to us. So as we were cutting countries over, each country that came on board, we would find that they had a unique solution in their country, and we couldn't leverage our global economies of scale in supporting those users. So to address this, we had a challenge in 3 areas. The first one was the procurement of the actual hardware itself. Because the contracts were negotiated at a local level, we were not able to leverage ABB's global scale to negotiate pricing and supply agreements with hardware vendors. So part to address that, working with the supply chain organization, we initiated a 5G project, we call it, to standardize and reduce the number of suppliers we have by selecting 3 hardware vendors globally and putting in place master frame agreements with them for the supply of printer hardware around the world. We have a bidding process in place where each vendor gets the opportunity to bid for business in the countries where we are now reaching the end of life of equipment, and we're looking at refreshing that equipment. This allows us to find the best supplier and the best pricing in that country or that region. In parallel to that, we also wanted to address our end-user workplace printing, which was part of our end-user services. And alongside all of this was our application printing and the challenges we have around SAP printing. ABB is a very large, very complex organization. We have many, many instances of SAP still within our organization. And we are also relying heavily on customized forms that have been, in some cases, in some countries, we have 400 or 500 custom forms that they're using in those countries. And some of these are even designed right down to a particular model of printer and driver that that printer is using to output those forms. So we had some challenges that we wanted to address, and we identified these 3 main areas for us to focus on. So I think this is, again, a picture that is probably familiar to a lot of you. This is what our environment looked like. We have SAP instances around the world, lots of custom forms, embedded barcodes, the usual challenges that most organizations have in a manufacturing and logistical organization. In addition to that, we were also transforming our end-user landscape. We were introducing new platforms that hadn't been in place before in ABB. We had a choose-your-own-company device policy that allows a user to choose between a Mac or a Lenovo or Windows-based device. We were promoting the use of mobile devices, iOS devices, and tablets as well. And we had this challenge around how do we manage and deliver basic services such as printing to these users. We were encountering all of the challenges around driver management, upgrades to operating systems, creating issues. As hardware refreshes were taking place, this was creating problems for us from a support perspective. And also, we had a very large, dispersed number of physical servers around the world just taking care of things like printing, and the costs associated with managing and maintaining this infrastructure as well operationally. Coupled with the fact that we had a very diverse hardware landscape when it came to printers as well, which created a lot of challenges for us when it came to standardizing, say, forms in SAP. So to address this, we decided to move to VPSX and simplify our infrastructure significantly. So we have designed and implemented an architecture that supports our application printing for SAP, as well as our end-user printing. We've established centralized servers, VPSX servers, in our 3 data centers around the world. And we are in the process now of removing local print servers and moving users over to this solution. And this has been it's actually been a real success story within ABB at this stage. And from printing being a very low priority, it's actually one of our highest priorities. We had some interesting situations over the last few years where we've had printing outages, and that's when the real impact of not being able to print comes to the surface. And as a result of that, there's been a greater focus on addressing enterprise output within our organization. So, just to recap on that, so we have our 3 strategic data centers around the world. We have VPSX servers in all of those. We have separated the application environment from our end-user environment because we have different vendors who are managing those with different commitments, and we didn't want to have them interfering in each other's operations. So we have a separate environment for our application printing and a separate one for our end users, but all on the same platform with ABB having visibility across both of them. We've been able to replace a large number of our servers with VPSX, eliminated a lot of the challenges we've had around the customized forms by using the forms translation capabilities that VPSX has. And this has enabled us to accelerate our hardware refresh program in countries as well. Because prior to that, countries were very reluctant for us to come in, replace their old printers, because it required them to spend a lot of time and effort then re-engineering forms and testing their applications against those new printers. Along with that, we've also centralized our end-user printing environment. So this has given our users the capability of searching and finding printers very easily. We're able to introduce secure printing and support multiple platforms as well and delivering print capabilities. And we've reduced the number of our global hardware vendors for printers down to 3 and established new global agreements with them with better pricing and leveraging our economies of scale. So this is a slide that basically sums up the journey we went on. So when we started focusing on print, originally the partner we were working with had focused on the Cirrato product. And although the product met some of our requirements, or most of them, we did encounter some challenges in the way we were implementing it in our environment. And we also had an interesting challenge in that through the bidding process, our hosting provider had selected the VPSX product for their solution, and our end-user service provider had selected Cirrato for their solution. And eventually, it took a little bit of time before the light bulb went off, and we went, why are we using 2 products to do essentially the same task? So as part of this, as we were working through this with our partner, we went through a implementation phase, and we weren't very satisfied with the outcomes at the end of it. As you can see, when we were implementing the POC with our provider, it took an extremely long time and was not delivering all of the capabilities that we were looking for. So working together with LRS and my CIO gave us a challenge. He said, you've got 8 weeks. You can do a proof of concept. If you can convince me after 8 weeks, we'll go with VPSX. We very rapidly ramped up a quick POC. He gave us 8 weeks. We did it in 6. We established the servers. We got the services up and running. We started doing a limited POC across 3 or 4 countries, Sweden, Switzerland, and Poland. And we were very rapidly able to show him all of the capabilities of the tool, from mobile printing, secure print delivery, the ability to find printers and connect to them from a portal. And also, there was probably a little bit of divine intervention during that period as well, since during the POC, we also had an outage in one of our data centers, and Sweden was unable to print. And the only people who were able to print in Sweden were the ones who were on the POC. So I didn't have a hand in that, but I did appreciate that happening. So at the end of this, we essentially got the go-ahead to consolidate onto VPSX and deploy it globally. So the way we're approaching this at the moment, because not all countries are at the same level of maturity within ABB and how we provide their services, so we're delivering some core services that will be part of every country's print capability. And this will cover everything from direct printing, selecting printers from the portal, printing from a mobile device, being the capability to print from email, reporting, standardized global catalog with the 3 vendors that we've selected. So we will select at a global level, we'll identify the use cases, we will define what sort of devices are available, and then countries can select from that. And the capability to scan to mail. This is pretty standard stuff. I like to say this is not rocket science, but the capability to deliver it in a consistent way globally is. In addition to that, we're providing countries the option of having enhanced services, and this is to integrate with Active Directory, to integrate with our access badges that allows them to securely print and release their print jobs, the ability to use roaming printing, and then scanning to a user's inbox. Recently, we had a new CIO join ABB. He started about 4 weeks ago. His first day on the job was, he asked the question, why are we still printing this way, and why can't I use my security badge to release my prints? So this is our approach. We've completed our production deployment in Switzerland and Sweden. So we have about 20,000 users now on this, using it in production daily. We're in the process of deploying the solution out into France and Spain and the remaining countries, and then we will accelerate as we go across to the rest of the world. So when I said that we've got to figure out how to deliver services all the way from Switzerland down to Zimbabwe, I'm not kidding. That is our scope that we have around the world. So essentially what VPSX has allowed us to do is give us the capability that we can be flexible with the hardware vendors we choose. We are now able to be hardware agnostic. We're not dependent on a particular brand because of our capabilities when it comes to SAP printing and the need that we don't need to have custom forms anymore. This is working. This has unlocked quite a lot of savings for us because we are now able to negotiate hardware procurement agreements on a global scale with some of the big brands, rather than at a country level. It's allowed us to deliver a consistent service to our end users. So now, when I go to Poland, I am able to print because my security badge previously didn't work in Poland, but I can now print there. And we are able to provide this to all of our roaming users, the capability to print securely, to be able to connect easily to printers in different countries, and improve their user experience. So essentially, this has been one of our success stories. We're currently, as I said, deploying this in the rest of the world, and aiming to have this finished by early next year, and probably Q2, Q3 at the latest. So that's the journey. That's where we've been. This is where we're going, and I hope this was of interest to you.